Hi, it's Achim from InnerSpace Explorers. Recently I posted a couple of videos from the early 2000s, wreck diving videos on my Patreon site, and one of them came back to me and said, hey, I see that you did wreck penetration there, but you didn't use a line. And can you talk a little bit about that? So I thought, well, it's a great topic, and let's go for that. Before we go into that topic, I have another one. As you see, the new ISE merge is out. Cheers. And you will actually see that under the video in the YouTube shop, and I would highly appreciate some feedback from you guys if you like the designs, if there's anything you miss, if there's something you don't like, whatever. There were so many requests, and I tried to figure out how to do that best, so I came up with, in my opinion, a good solution. Yeah, you will see the stuff in my videos. The quality is really great. I really like it, so I'm super happy with the results, but obviously I made this for you, so let me know what you think. Alright, back to the topic. The wreck penetration with or without a line. So obviously the general rule says you do an overhead dive, you want to use a guideline from free water, open water, all the way to where you return, so you're always on the line. True. Now let's talk wreck diving. First of all, in that particular video, it looked a lot like penetration, but it was more swim-throughs. So in wreck diving, there's a lot of grace. You can clearly not do it in black and white, yes or no, because it's a complete different environment. So in wreck penetration, a 20-meter penetration into a wreck can be way more challenging than swimming 500 meters into a big cave. The wreck environment in general is way more, I don't want to call it dangerous, but let's say more demanding, more challenging. There's a lot more sharp rusted metal, a lot more debris in a lot of cases. The percolation material that falls down when your air bubbles hit it, cables, steel cables, whatever, pieces that fall down because they rot. Wreck can change dramatically over the years, while the cave usually doesn't change that much, if at all. So for these reasons, on one hand, you may argue like, oh yeah, you can use visibility, you can lose your visibility very fast because of percolation or something like that. So you want to use a guideline. On the other hand, the guideline can be an additional hazard. So it really, really, really depends what you do. So it brings me back to what I keep telling in all of these videos. You have to make an educated decision, and to make an educated decision, you have to have proper training to allow you to make that decision. So let's talk about a few examples. So you're somewhere in Egypt, you're on one of these wrecks that are basically sunken for divers, or they have been cleaned for divers. And I mean, there's this bulkhead, you look through, you see the other end, you swim through. You don't need a line, that's nonsense. And taking it out and putting it in there, and there's probably 5 dive boats anchored over the wreck, that probably causes more drama than it does good. I don't know if I talked about that, but there's a wreck in the Baltic Sea that I've been diving frequently for. No, that's actually one of the chapters in the book. That's why it's so present in my mind. It's a wreck that sank in World War II. It burned heavily, and there is a room in there, which I know from the building plans, that it's like a, yeah, it's a diver's room, so that ship had divers on board. So I was always keen to find that room and see if there's anything of that hardhat diving equipment left. And so the room is most probably under sea level. The wreck sits in a weird angle, and you have to really go under the wreck and then go through some twisted steel plates and then basically go in, drop down one deck, and then it's a nightmare. Did I use a guideline? Yeah, I used a guideline, of course, because after 3 meters in the wreck, you exhaled, and as it burns so heavy, everything's covered in that nasty black slimy mud everywhere. So once you touch anything or your bubbles touch it, visibility is zero. In the meaning of, it doesn't matter if your light's on or not, you can't read your instruments, it's off. On the other hand, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, that wreck starts to fall down, there's a lot of mud in there, cables coming down from overhead bulkheads, etc., etc., etc. So there is a lot of entanglement points. So it's not that you take your line and you swim in there and then you turn around and you swim out like you do in a lot of caves. So you have to put your line very, very specific, and you have to learn, or you have to learn to know your, I don't know if that makes sense, but you really have to learn about your environment. Gary Gentle at some point called this progressive penetration, which in my opinion is a very good description for that. So you go in, or you go to the entrance, you look around, you notice potential problem areas. Okay, there's this pipe that looks loose that can come down. Okay, there's some cable hanging that could snag on my valves, etc. And then you look like, okay, this is probably the way to go through there. So you go in for 2 meters, you turn around, you look at the way, you look at the picture, how that looks on your way out. Is there anything else that you probably don't see on the way in? Like there's a plate, for example, that when you swim in, it's just a plate. When you turn around, it's a plate that came down and there's a lot of cable behind, which you don't see on the way in, but on the way out in bad visibility can be actually a real bad hazard. So you do that one dive. You just familiarize with the first couple of meters. You go back out. You come back. You check it out again. So obviously that takes a lot of time, but it's, in my opinion, one of the probably the only way to really do it safe if it's a really harsh environment. And then if you take a line because you expect zero visibility or low visibility on the way out, you have to really think about where you put that line. So following the line out, it doesn't run you into problem areas. So really, really a lot of thinking, planning, pre-planning, rethinking, and obviously nothing for the average diver that just wants to penetrate a wreck. So as you can see, there is a lot of different levels of wreck penetration from the swim through. I mean, let me give you another example. The USS Duane, probably a lot of you have been there, sits in front of the Florida Keys as a United States Coast Guard cutter, was in service in World War II, in the Korea War, etc., etc. Actually, quite a bit of interesting history behind it. And it is sunk there as an artificial reef, sits upright in 40 meters of water. For me, pretty interesting because I married them, my first wife, underwater. One of my favorite wrecks, not because of that, but really beautiful. So if you haven't been there and you have a chance, dive it. But as it is a artificial reef that was sunk for divers, it's cleaned out. I mean, all the doors are removed, or they're welded in an open position. Everything that could create a hazard is taken out, which means you cannot really get entangled or something like that. But you can get into rooms where you cannot get out through the next hole, because the next hole might be like a porthole or something like that, where you can look out and you see daylight, but it does not necessarily mean you can go back out. So a lot of people think, oh, well, perfect. I can go there, it's clean for divers, I don't need a guideline, I can swim through all the rooms and I will come out the next door. That's wrong. There's another one called the Spiegel Grove, sits also in front of the Florida Keys. It's huge, huge, huge. And as far as I know, there have been a few fatalities with people getting lost in that wreck. So there the line makes a lot of sense, because there's not these entanglement points. It's basically not possible to ruin the visibility because there's no silt or anything where you kick with your fins and no visibility. It's all clean steel, hard coral, stuff like that. Great. Put a line in. The line will not take an additional entanglement. So you go down a deck, you go a little bit left, a little bit right. You probably can't remember the way. You turn around, you see two doors. Which is the one that I came through? Yeah, the line will help. That's a great example for doing a wreck penetration with a guideline. All right, I hope that answers the question more or less. It's a topic that you could probably spend a couple of evenings sitting together and chatting. So I hope this clarified the question, answered it. If you have more specific questions, please leave a comment in the comment section. And otherwise, please check out the Patreon site. Super cool community. Meanwhile, I recently went live for almost 1.5 hours, and a lot of cool chats going on there. And great opportunity to have a more private conversation. If you like what you've seen, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing, and if you subscribe, hit that little bell so you get a notification when there's new content coming up. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed that. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.